Okay, then we're going to prepare the moulding cast today, and we've got a mould that we're going to go round. As you can see, it's all been rounded off and tapered so that it can easily be taken out, so that the impression that we make with the sand today will be left on there and it won't fall in. So we'll place that into the cope, which is the bottom. Okay, we're going to add some parting powder over the actual mould, and what that does, that ensures that the sand doesn't stick to the mould. We've got the parting sand over the mould there now. We're going to introduce the sieve so that the sand going on top of the mould is very fine and it will give a good impression. You'll notice the sand that we're pushing through is an oil-based sand, which means that it will form a very fine collection over the top. All we need to do is actually just cover the actual mould itself, and then we can put the sand in normally. If you're using oil-based sand like this, or with anything, you must ensure that you have the correct fume extraction in place, because obviously it will give fumes off when the molten aluminium is added into the mould. And when we remove the sieve, you can see the fine sand is now covered the mould, and we'll gently just make sure that it is actually fitted correctly over the mould. We'll just put that down, and now we can start adding the sand. And then we've got a ramming dolly. This one is just a homemade wooden one that we're going to compact the sand with now and make sure that it fills the mould. So getting it right into the corners, it's very important that the corners are very well compacted. Okay, this looks like it's nearly complete now. That's all well compact. We need to actually now straighten the sand off so that we've got a nice flat base to work with. So we just get a sharp edge, a flat edge, and run it across. That looks pretty good. That's quite tight in there. We're going to flip it over now, and then we're going to introduce the second half of the mould. And there we go. You can see there's a good impression on there. We'll introduce the second mould now, and because this is going to be a doorstop, there's going to be a bit of a wedge that's going to be fixed in as well. And we also need to introduce the spruces so that the molten aluminium can be poured into the mould. We're going to enter the second half. So that goes on top. It's exactly the same process as the first one was. So we've actually got a little piece that's going to fit in now so that it will act as a doorstop, and we put the parting powder over everything so that once it's poured we can split the mould perfectly. Exactly the same process. We will then pour over the top of the part here through the sieve to make sure that we've got the best quality sand right next to the actual mould that we've got there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll just put that down so that it holds position. Again, just to remind you, the fine sand there is so that we get a good impression on the mould. We need somewhere for the aluminium to be poured into and be released out now, so we're going to enter the sprue. We're going to have one at the head there where it will enter, and one at the base here where it will come out. With this particular one, we can hold that one, but with this side, we need to actually position it and hold it in position before we start tapping round. Okay, we've got the sprues well fixed in there now. We need to do exactly the same so that we can flatten the mould off. A bit more difficult this time with those in position, so we just work around them as carefully as we can. Okay, we just cleared off around the sprue so that when they're taken out, not a lot of debris falls in. Okay, we'll clear the table up now, and we'll take those out and then split the mould into two and take the different halves of the mould out. Okay then, as the sprues are tapered, it should be easy as a little turn and out they come. Okay, we're going to break the mould now. This is where we see if we've tapped everything in sufficient or not. Over we come. Okay, we can see I put the sprue a little tight in there, so we'll just do a bit of work on there and make sure that that's filled in so that we don't get any excess aluminium getting into there. On this one you can see the sprues come all the way through there, but I haven't just gone quite deep enough here, so we'll turn it over and we'll just carefully break it through. Most expensive tool in the box, an old teaspoon. There we go, perfect. Okay, then we've got the inlet and the outlet as it were now, so we just need to make some channels to there so that the aluminium, once it's in, it can run. If you do it while the mould's in this side, and we just have a little piece going down so that it can fill this piece up just as quick, just to help it flow. We get the bellows and just clean those up now before we shut it back up to make sure that everything's okay. Okay, then now the tricky part, we need to take our patterns out. This is quite important. We need to pull them out as easy as we can so that we don't dislodge any of the sand. Just a little bit of a repair job there, and as you can see there is quite a good indentation there of the Oscar figure. And just to clean it up, okay, then all that's left now is to reintroduce the 2/2 sanding boxes, and we'll be ready to go to the crucible and start getting everything ready for that. The casting box is now ready, and we need to get the area that we're going to do the actual casting in ready too. It's very important that there's no water within the area. The regulations, you shouldn't have any water within 2 meters. You should have full fume extraction system. If you remember at the beginning, I actually said that we would be using Petrobond, which is an oil-based sand, so therefore that will give off fumes. And your fume extraction system should be interlocked with the gas unit that you're using so that it ensures that it's on. So what we're trying to do now is then we're going to physically look at the crucible to make sure that everything looks fine, make sure that there's no cracks in the crucible, that any aluminium that's in there is already out. And also we need to preheat everything so that all the moisture within the tools and the utensils that we're going to use is dispersed as well. Important thing, a lot of the equipment that you'll be using will be metal, and we don't want any oxidization or rust on there. So if you've got any on, please rub that down to make sure that there's no rust on there. We've got tongs, and if you also preheat the aluminium as well, that makes it a lot easier. Before I turn everything on, obviously I'm not going to do any pouring like this. We need to use all the safety equipment that's available to us. I already have my boots on. We'll be using a full face mask, which is specially designed for the heat treatment area, probably different specification to the one that you would use it in wood dust. Then you need to make sure that you've got full gauntlets and gloves. The idea is that if they're full length, then no aluminium, or it's difficult for aluminium to get down into there. A full chrome leather apron to look after all the vital organs that you've got there should you get any splashback. And then obviously to stop any burns or anything, we've got some leggings that will actually cover the boots and the legs as well. Okay, then we're going to put some degassing tablet in now. Some people still use them. we're just doing this today to show you how they actually work and how you would actually do it. A lot of the aluminium is a lot cleaner than it used to be, but I would say if you're refining your own aluminium, that you definitely use the gassing tablet. So what you need to do, you need to place that into the crucible and then get your ladle and make sure that it's actually depressed down so that it degasses all the aluminium. That's dissolved now. You will see a little bit of effervescence when you throw it in, and that's, as it says, it's a degassing tablet, so that's the gas coming off. Okay, then the aluminium, like it's well on its way to being melted now. We need to now to take the temperature. We've got a good old-fashioned pyrometer here, which is an analog one. You can get infrared ones or whatever, but as you're all aware, aluminium melts about 660, and the idea of pouring point is round about 740. So we'll just have a quick look and see what temperature we're at. Okay, that's round about 700, so it'll be ready to pour. We need to get rid of the dross on the top, so we carefully just skim that off the top. Take it off and put it in the sand out the way. Pyrometer says 740, so we're ready to pour now. So what we want is a smooth, steady pour, no jerks or anything like that. And we want to stand back of the pouring area, so if there's any spillages, there's nothing can come over us. So you'll notice with this crucible, as soon as it lifted, it switches off. So now, one nice steady pour into there. And you'll see it just rise on here, and there we go. Okay, it's been left for a couple of hours now. It'll still be warm, but to find out whether or not it's set all the way through, we do a thing called the ring test. So if you hit it and it sounds like that, it's not quite ready. So let's have a go. That seems fairly solid, so I'll get the gloves on and we'll move it across. Okay, we've got our sandbox here. You can see around the edges that there's some burnt sand. That sand we really need to throw away, so we'll just break in. You can see all the spent sand there, so we'll break that away from there and make sure that it isn't used again. We'll cut this off and clean him up, and as you can see there, everything's gone through fine. We'll just let that cool a little bit more as it's still fairly warm there.